My daughter found a note. We left early for Hawaii, be out before we return. She read it aloud with shaky hands. I didn't cry. I made small decisions. 10 days later, they landed and realized what I did. Then they started screaming. When I tell people my parents went to Hawaii and left me a note like I was their dog sitter, most think I'm exaggerating. I'm not. It was a Thursday morning, cold, gray, and quiet, except for Zoe clanking her cereal spoon around the bowl. She was 4 and already learning to read. That's probably the only reason she noticed the piece of paper sitting on the counter. Folded clean, typed neatly, he picked it up and read it aloud slowly. We left early for Hawaii. Be out before we return. She looked at me confused. I took it from her and stared at the words. That was it. No signature, no smiley face, no clue when they were coming back, not even a reminder to feed the cat. We didn't have one, but you get the idea. I stood there for a long time, not angry, not sad, just emptied out, like the part of me that kept hoping they'd be different had finally given up. I didn't even have the energy to feel shocked. Maybe because I already knew what kind of people they were deep down. I just didn't want to admit it. 5 months earlier, after my divorce, they said I could move back in just until things settled. I was 27, single mom, no savings left after legal fees. They made it sound like they were doing me this huge favor. What they actually gave me was a cramped room, constant judgment, and a running tab. It started small. Can you grab milk on your way home? Then it turned into, we're out of detergent. Then, since you're using the Wi-Fi more, maybe you should just put it in your name. Before long, I was covering 3 utility bills, all the groceries, and buying household stuff like I was the landlord, all while juggling 2 jobs and daycare. I told myself it was temporary, but everything felt permanent. The way they treated me like a living burden instead of family. The way my dad would sigh when Zoe cried at night. The way my mom would bring up how she raised 3 kids without any help. Every time I looked tired, and now they were gone. Off to Hawaii with my brother, his wife, their kids. They'd been planning it for months clearly. Flights booked, bags packed, probably group chats full of excited messages. I was never once included. They never even mentioned it. So I started moving in silence. By noon, I was in the garage pulling down boxes. Not for my clothes, that would come later. I started with the kitchen. I packed the blender. I bought the rice cooker. Or the set of knives I got on sale. All of it. Every single thing in that house that I paid for, I claimed it. It was easy to keep track because they never bought me anything. I canceled the internet. The electric bill too, though I prepaid a few days so the fridge wouldn't stink when it shut off. I was thoughtful like that. Then I walked into the garage. My dad's pickup was parked exactly where it always was. He loved that thing even though it barely ran. 2 months earlier, it needed new front tires. He looked at me and said, "You know, I'd help you if I could." Right before I gave my card to the guy at the counter, I found a screwdriver in the toolbox. It didn't take more than a few seconds. I didn't feel good doing it, but I didn't feel bad either. Then I packed our things, clothes, toys, Zoe's drawings from the fridge. By Saturday morning, we were gone. I rented a modest 2-bedroom place with paper-thin walls and nothing but a parking lot outside the window. But it belonged to us now. That was the only part that counted. I sent no messages, made no calls. There was no goodbye note, no heads up at all. 10 days passed before they got back from their trip. No big family welcome. No kid rushing out with bags of food. Just a silent, empty house, no Wi-Fi, no running vehicle, and nobody left to shout at. The yelling kicked off about 2 hours later. The initial ring came at 6:43 that evening. I ignored it. I was down on the carpet in our fresh apartment, assisting Zoe as she emptied a box full of plush toys. She chose the wall by the window to arrange them all, insisting they deserved something pretty to look at. I grinned and let the call roll to voicemail. Then came the next one, and another. After the 4th, I switched my phone to silent and tucked it away inside a kitchen drawer. Once Zoe was asleep that night, I perched on the side of our makeshift mattress bed and played through each message. Mom's first one was a long, frantic ramble, her pitch climbing higher with every sentence. She demanded to know where I'd vanished to, why the internet had vanished, what happened to her appliances. Hearing her claim ownership of them actually made me chuckle aloud. Dad's was brief and sharp. "Pick up the damn phone." Click. The others followed the same pattern: blame, shame, wild claims of disloyalty to the family. The harshest hit came from my brother, though not voice, but text. "Wow, super grown-up move. You just ruined everything for Mom and Dad because you felt left out of one vacation. Time to act your age, Emily." I read it over a few times. Then I blocked his number without a second thought. What stung most was how nobody bothered asking the real question. Why did I go? Not a single one showed curiosity or care. Their calls weren't about missing Zoe or me. They wanted their stuff returned, the things I'd actually purchased. They wanted their maid, their fixer, their bill payer back in place. To them, that's all I'd ever been, useful. Next morning, barely past 8, someone knocked. I stayed quiet and peeked through the hole. Dad, still in his wrinkled travel shirt, clutching his phone. Another knock, then harder ones. Finally, he gave up and walked away. Barely 10 minutes later, unknown numbers lit up my phone. Probably Mom borrowing my brother's line. Maybe an old cousin I hadn't talked to in forever. Every message carried that same entitled, scolding energy, acting like I owed them my entire existence. I left them all on read. By day 3, an envelope appeared taped to my door. No stamp, clearly dropped by hand. Inside, a typed-up invoice from Dad, complete with bullet-pointed damages and stolen items. He'd priced out random things, the coffee maker, plates, and old vacuum. He even listed the $89 TV from the spare room, the one I bought myself on Black Friday, as stolen. Grand total, $1,326.74. Straight into the bin it went. That evening, Zoe looked up from her coloring and asked if Grandma and Grandpa were upset with us. I said no, we simply live somewhere else now. She gave one small nod and kept drawing. I knew this was only the beginning. The calls, the notes, the snide messages, they were just the opening act. They still hadn't accepted that I wasn't coming back, that their intimidation didn't work anymore, that I had zero left to lose. In a few more days, the guilt phase would end and the real threats would begin. They didn't rush to the cops. Instead, they dragged things out the usual way, slow poison, playing victim, piling on pressure until I cracked. That tactic had kept me in line forever. Not this time. 4 days after they returned, another envelope showed up, taped unevenly, hand-delivered again. Inside, Dad's scrawled note in all caps, labeled stolen property with theft triple underlined in red. Same list: toaster, microwave, router, vacuum, now with pawn shop style prices and a brand new $50 inconvenience charge. I set it down and actually laughed out loud. They still didn't get it. I wasn't intimidated anymore. The third envelope arrived thinner. Just one sheet. A tire shop receipt from 2 months back with a heavy black ink message scrawled underneath. We have proof. You'll hear from someone soon. I stared, not out of fear, but because it was so textbook. Classic move, vague threat, big bluff, banking on me folding before they ever had to act. They preferred the appearance of power over actual fights. I wasn't taking chances. Next morning, I phoned a little law firm on the edge of town that did free Thursday consults. I carried every scrap of proof, receipts, statements, photos of their notes. The attorney skimmed everything quietly, then asked the key thing. Any written lease or rent agreement? I said no. I'd handled utilities, food, everything, but it was always unspoken, powered by guilt and expectation. He nodded. Legally, you were just a guest. Items bought in your name or paid by you belong to you. The tire thing could get complicated for them. If you covered it, dragging it to court means airing their own freeloading. Messy, then he added, they're mostly bluffing, but you could call their bluff if you feel like it. I stayed quiet, but inside I already decided I would. That same evening came the surprise. A proper mailed envelope in my box. No sender name, just my name in familiar looping handwriting. One folded sheet inside. Emily, I heard about everything. I'm truly sorry for how your parents behaved toward you. You didn't deserve any of it. If you or Zoe ever need help, anything at all, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'll respect your space, but I wanted you to know you aren't alone. Marie, my former mother-in-law, we hadn't spoken properly since the divorce. She'd always kept neutral, kind, but removed. This short, calm message of solidarity hit harder than I expected. She was the first person to name what happened and call it wrong. That single note carried more weight than any fake sorry I never received from my own family. Later that night, I sat at my laptop and got to work. Not writing them. Writing cancellations for electricity, water, internet, all accounts in my name for months. I closed them permanently, settled finals, cut every tie. Then I went further. I rang the HOA. My parents had no clue how many rules they'd broken. Unregistered junk car in the drive, peeling shed overdue for paint, unreported long-term renter. My cousin last spring. The HOA lady sounded almost excited. She requested evidence. I forwarded copies. Within days, they'd receive an official notice, not from me. Time they experienced what happens when no one shields them anymore. Time they felt the isolation. The HOA letter arrived on a Monday. I know the exact time because Mom rang at 8:02 a.m., leaving a message that sounded like pure rage. No fake calm left. She screamed about fines, lowered home values, shaming the neighborhood, how ID betrayed family by dragging outsiders in. She was wrong on every count. I had every right. And her anger came from finally facing consequences without me there to absorb them. I didn't return the call. I simply saved the recording in a folder labeled Keep. That folder turned into its own little archive. Every message, every recording, every handwritten demand. Everything from the moment they flew off to Hawaii. I refused to let anything slip my mind anymore. No more automatic forgiveness just because family expects it. 3 rule breaks, 2 penalty notices, plus a formal heads-up about their backyard shed that apparently hadn't met standards since 2019. In the follow-up voicemail that same day, Mom's tone cracked. She tried forcing calm, murmuring lines like, families fall apart when we stop holding on to each other. By midweek, the calls from her dried up completely. That's when my brother took over. He texted from a fresh number, clearly aware the old one was dead to me. His opener was brief. Can we just talk? Not about the items, just about lending a hand. Things are rough right now. I knew exactly what he was fishing for, no subtlety there. Minutes later came the longer version. Mentions of mounting credit card bills, mounting stress, how it was affecting his own children. Then the kicker, you could ease things for everyone and maybe we could find some peace again. As though peace came with a transaction fee, as though I owed him relief. I left it unread. The next day he escalated to a group chat. Him, Mom, Dad, all 3. They packaged it as an opportunity to heal the family. Loaded with lines like, everyone's messed up at some point, you just went overboard, but the love is still here. 0 apologies. Not a single one. They were still hunting for the version where I was the villain. I ignored the whole thread. That Saturday, they showed up at my building. I was mid-meal with Zoe when their car rolled in. My stomach twisted, not from panic, but pure revulsion. I peeked from behind the blinds. Dad in his old windbreaker, Mom clutching her crossbody bag like a shield, brother with hands jammed in pockets looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. They knocked, then pounded harder. I stayed silent. They lingered, muttering loud enough for snippets to drift through. She's definitely inside. This is ridiculous. She's just making it worse. Eventually, the voices trailed off, footsteps receded. I double-checked the lock anyway. Then I opened my laptop and drafted the final communication I'd ever sent. No warmth, no rage, just cold clarity. I itemized every cent I'd covered since moving in. Power, water, food, random household stuff. Receipts attached. I spelled out the legal reality. Everything I removed belonged to me. No theft involved, and if they pushed further, I was prepared to respond in kind. I closed with, "You never supported me, you exploited me, I didn't abandon you, I reclaimed my life. And love isn't owed because someone once let you crash on their couch." Sent. Then I blocked their emails, blocked every unfamiliar number that popped up after. I figured that would close the chapter. But 7 days later, one last voicemail slipped through from Mom. No shouting, no remorse, just 5 flat words. "You'll regret this one day, Emily." I kept it, not out of dread or doubt. I kept it as proof of exactly the people I'd left behind, and exactly why I'd never return. After that voicemail, the 5 icy words she probably hoped would echo in my head forever, everything fell silent. No more mass texts, no more envelopes taped to the door, no unannounced drop-ins, just quiet. At first I braced for the next wave. I half expected a neighbor to mention they'd been snooping, or my screen to glow with yet another burner number and the same old guilt script. But days turned into a full week. Nothing. It took time to name what the silence actually meant. Not defeat, not reconciliation, shame. The HOA notices had landed hard enough to embarrass them in front of the whole street. Someone in their picture-perfect community must have noticed the violation sticker on their door and asked questions. People like my parents don't bounce back quickly from public cracks in their perfect facade. Not the fines themselves, but the humiliation. And without me there to absorb the blame, they had no easy target left. Unless they admitted the full truth. What I'd really removed wasn't just kitchen gadgets or bill responsibility. I'd stripped away the part they'd assigned me for so long. The forever struggling daughter who never quite repaid enough. They debuilt their identity around having someone to carry, to criticize, to depend on without thanks. And just like that, I vanished from the role. They were left staring at themselves. Zoe and I were settling in. The place was still cramped, still loud from neighbors, but it stayed tidy and calm. No banging drawers, no irritated sighs when Zoe got excited. We built our own rhythm. Quick breakfasts, preschool drop-off, my early work hours, park lunches on sunny days. I caught myself smiling without forcing it. Then one random afternoon, an email arrived from Aunt Lisa, Mom's big sister. I hadn't seen her since Zoe's first months. She'd always hovered on the edges at gatherings, never diving into drama. She didn't probe for details or my version. She simply wrote, "Your mom phoned me, claiming you cleared out the house and vanished without a word. I told her anyone paying attention could have predicted this. You were never the issue, Emily. If you need a place to land or even just quiet space to exist, our spare room is open. Zero pressure." That one made me pause hard, not for theatrics, but for its plain honesty. Someone else had clocked their behavior clearly and refused to sugarcoat it. This was the second out-of-nowhere show of support. First Marie, my ex's mother, now Lisa. Both offered help with no agenda, but fix the family strings. They weren't repairing. They were just confirming. We witnessed it too. What hit hardest was realizing others had probably seen the pattern for years and stayed quiet. Maybe they assumed I was too entangled to escape. Maybe they figured I'd never actually walk. Truthfully, I'd believed that myself for a long stretch. That evening I went through my contacts. I didn't delete Mom, Dad, or my brother. Instead, I renamed them. Susan, Richard, plain first name for him, unstarred the favorites. I skimmed old threads once, then stopped. Rereading felt like flipping through ashes. I powered the phone down and tucked it away. Next morning at pickup, Zoe's teacher caught me quietly. She's thriving, more engaged, more laughter, less tension. She's even got a new buddy, June. They're signing drawings together now. I thanked her, grinning. Then she added softly, "You look lighter yourself." I didn't answer, but those words stayed with me the whole walk home. For years, I'd internalized their narrative. I was flawed, too needy, impossible to love. Every plea for support, every exhausted boundary, every quiet rebellion got twisted into proof. But the real problem was never my too much. It was their consistent nothing. Now I wasn't performing for approval anymore. No tiptoeing, no shrinking to fit their comfort. Whether they ever owned it or kept clinging to their rightness didn't change a thing. They could stew in their private denial forever. I wasn't returning to mop it up. Not ever. It arrived in a blank white envelope, no sender info. My name typed in block caps on the front, like handwriting was beneath them. I found it jammed in my mailbox one ordinary Tuesday, the sort of peaceful afternoon where you almost forget certain people still hunt for openings to reel you back. I tore it open right there in the hallway, single typed page. No hello, no sign-off. "We believe you've proven your point. You've removed more than enough. Time to end this chapter and move on together as family. If you're open to discussion, your brother can help arrange something fair." That word, fair, lingered. Because their version of fair wasn't justice. It was convenience on their terms. Still zero sorry. No reference to the vacation note they'd left behind. No nod to the exclusion, the exploitation, the blame they'd heaped for years. Nothing about the thousands I'd funneled into their home or the time I'd spent invisible inside it. They just wanted closure, neat, silent, with me agreeing to whatever let them save face. Okay, sure, let's move on. But there was nothing to move on from. What they called family. I lived through the guilt, the manipulation, the silence when I needed help, the shouting when I spoke up. They didn't want a relationship. They wanted access. I didn't reply. 3 days later, a text from an unknown number while I was in the grocery line. "So this is how it ends? You're really done with all of us, after everything?" My brother. I didn't answer. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I'd already said it. With my actions, my silence, my choice to walk away forever. After everything. Like they'd done me a favor by letting me live in a house where I paid the bills and was treated like a burden. Here's the truth I can now say without flinching. They didn't love me, not really. They loved the quiet version of me who asked for little, took the blame, and kept coming back. That version is gone. These days life feels different, peaceful. Zoe and I have our own rhythm. The apartment is small but warm and truly ours. My paintings hang on the walls, still not great but improving. Our calendar is full of simple joys. Library visits, playdates, pancake Saturdays. Last week Zoe asked why we don't see Grandma and Grandpa anymore. I pulled her close on the couch under a blanket and said simply, Sometimes people don't treat us the way we deserve, and it's okay to walk away. She nodded, didn't cry, just snuggled in and started humming. She was fine, more than fine. That night, alone in the kitchen, it all hit me. The silence, the weight of cutting ties, knowing my only family now is the little girl asleep next door. I wondered, did I do the right thing? Should I have tried one more time, stayed quiet longer, waited for an apology that would probably never come? Or was leaving the only way to protect us both? I don't know for sure. But I do know this, I'm not afraid of them anymore. Not their anger, not their silence, not their fake forgiveness. They don't control my life from far away.